All right, I did not want to be back down here, but we're back underneath the car and I'm going to be pulling the transmission back out. I don't think I showed you guys putting it in. Putting it in was a huge pain in my ass. I really need to get, and this is very first world problems, but I really need to get a under lift trans jack. I have a floor trans jack, but the problem is that can't get the car up high enough to use it really. And if it's on the lift, it's too hard to get underneath the lift. It's just me bitching to bitch. But anyway, I'm gonna have to pull this trans back down so I can do a couple things to it. I wanna get a connector on the trans brake solenoid. I wanna get the overflow hooked up. And I might open up the tunnel a little bit more. It's really hard to get to some of these bolts. So yeah, I'm gonna take this thing down and that's gonna suck. So here we go. All right guys, I'm coming to you from a little bit in the future. Apparently the clip I recorded to explain what's going on didn't work. So the last thing you guys saw was indeed me dropping the transmission. That really kind of sucked. I think I explained before that how even though I have a lift and trans jack, it's not the easiest thing to do the transmission by myself. The best solution would be a under lift trans jack, so I could just get in and out underneath the car a lot easier. The trans jack I have is like a floor jack basically, which is great, but the problem is it's hard to get the car high enough to get the transmission underneath with it on the jack. And then me by myself trying to get it onto the jack underneath the car is impossible. So I have to have the car on the lift. Having the car on the lift means it has to be pretty far down because the lift adds, I think it's about 4 inches underneath the tires to the overall height of the car. It's just a big pain in the ass. So transmission is right there. Everything seems okay. The transmission and the torque converter looked okay. What happened was I thought that it was holding the transmission flat. When you go back and watch the footage, I'm sure you guys could see that it's leaning forward from the start, but I didn't see that until it fell. And basically the transmission was tipped forward, and as the car came up, as soon as the flex plate cleared, the transmission just dumped forward and fell off. I've since readjusted the transmission jack to hold it a lot more square and level and hold the weight balanced much better. So hopefully I don't ever have that problem again. So as you can see, we're a month in the future from where the transmission fell out of the car, and it's still not in the car. So clearly we're not going to be finishing that right now. This video is now going to jump back into the rear end and getting that all back together and put back in the car now that it's welded up. We are looking at my relatively clean bench here. It's been a while since I've seen it like this. As you can see here, we got a whole bunch of aluminum. All this stuff here is for the differential. So these are the rear two that go into the subframe, and then these two that go like this are the ones that go on the ears of the differential. These are the Sikky bushings. They seem really nice, machined really well, good finish on them. So hopefully those are pretty easy to install. And then down here, I think I've talked about it before, but maybe not. This is the differential adapter for the drive shaft. This is made by Drift Motion. So this will adapt the 3-bolt flange style to a 4-bolt 1350 universal joint. This I've already actually set in place and kind of checked, and everything looks good on that. So this should be no big deal. I just put it out here because it's a shiny piece of aluminum. Kind of matches everything else. This stuff is going to be a little bit more difficult. From what I understand, these are not too terrible. You could pretty much just knock out the factory bushings. These ones on the subframe are much more difficult. A couple of people make a tool. I think Powerhouse Racing makes a tool. It looks like a very nice tool. It's about $100 the last time I looked. It's hard to justify spending $100 for a tool that I probably will use once in my life. As much as I would like to have it, I just don't want to spend the money on it right now. I'd rather spend that money on other stuff for the car. So what I'm going to try to do is cut those factory bushings and just beat them out of there probably. I don't know. We're going to look at it and see what we could come up with. Let's get the car up in the air and get you guys set up, and we will see what we could do. Okay, we got new tool. Just a really cheap Harbor Freight Century Pneumatic air hammer. As you guys know, I just got a compressor pretty recently, so I don't have anything for air tools. I don't want to spend the money on good air tools. Needed to get this done, so I went and got a super cheap, this thing was like 12 bucks. I can't even believe how cheap it was. I got a super cheap impact gun and a new airline because I only had a short airline. More on that later. Actually, my buddy Lou from Cayman Tool sponsored me, essentially, and gave me a full airline kit for the shop. So I'm going to be installing that pretty soon. But for now, I had to get something so I could reach the car. So again, Harbor Freight, cheap airline. So anyway, I'm going to put you guys back on time lapse because this is going to get wild, and I'm going to try and hammer these guys out. And then we'll get underneath the car and do the really tough ones. bushings are out. The ear ones, whatever you want to call them, that are on the diff, those weren't too bad. Actually, they may have been a little bit harder, to be honest with you. But that was probably because of how I was trying to hold them. The big ones in the subframe, they were okay. I mean, I kind of expected them to put up a little bit more of a fight. It wasn't too terrible. This one, which is the one that has 2 holes in it, actually was filled with liquid, which I had no idea, so that sprayed all over the place and made a huge mess. But other than that, not too terrible, got them out. So now I'm gonna kind of move the camera around. I'm gonna try and get the new ones in and then get the diff lifted up. Well, that did not go to plan. You can see I have the new bushings on the front ears. I had the diff adapter installed. I think I already went over that. However, back here, you'll notice I'm missing something. So this bushing went in, no problem. A couple light taps with the hammer and it slid right into place. I had it lined up good right from the get-go, which was just pure luck. This one fought me tooth and nail. I spent a couple hours on it last night. I think the camera died while I was working on it. I had sanded the inside of the race on the subframe. I sanded the outside of the bushing. I tried lube. I tried everything. So overnight I froze it again. I actually had it frozen when I first started, but I froze it again overnight, heated up the subframe and tried to get it in there, tried to pull with a C-clamp, tried to beat it in with a hammer. I mean, I tried everything. Turns out I ended up calling Sikky directly and asking what was up. And it turns out there was a mistake. Mine was oversized for some reason. So no questions asked or sending me a new one. So big shout out to them for taking care of that. It's really appreciated. You know, customer service is a lot of times non-existent. So to have them just send that out with no problem, that was great. So that's coming. In the meantime, I'm gonna put the axles back up because I need to get the car off the lift so I can use the lift for something else. So it'll be fine for now. I'm not gonna drive without it, obviously. So I'm just gonna leave this up here like this, put the axles back in, get the wheels on so I can get the car out of here. It's me from the future again. Sikky actually sent me out a new mount the very next day. They overnighted it actually. It went right in. I didn't film it, but it went right in. A couple little taps of the hammer and that was all taken care of. So that's gonna do it for this one. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.